All right, I think that we can jump in. Welcome, everybody, to the community-centric models for delivering the news session. My name is Jihii Jolly. I'm going to be your moderator today. I am a journalist, and I write a newsletter called Time Spent, which is jihii.substack.com. And I'm so excited today to be able to facilitate this discussion, but mostly hear from these very brilliant and talented people that you see in front of you. So just to orient everybody, the session is going to be about 50 minutes, and most of it, we're going to kind of have a facilitated conversation. We're going to do our best to do a little bit of Q&A at the end. So we'll try to keep an eye on those and address those. But we're going to get started first, just with some introductions. So I'm joined today by Rommel Ojeda from Documented New York, Sabrina Iglesias from The Trace, Jesús del Toro from La Raza, and Ron Smith from Milwaukee Neighborhood News Service. And we're going to jump right in with a quick round of introductions. So if everyone could just tell us who you are, and then most importantly, tell us who you serve, where you sit on the news landscape in your region, and how big your team is. So maybe we will start with Ron, since you're already unmuted.
Oh, okay. Want to do things right. Hello, everybody. I am just delighted to be part of this great panel because I've admired all of your work for a long time. I'm Ron Smith. I'm the editorial director for the Milwaukee Neighborhood News Service. And I'm a lifelong journalist. I've been nosy since I was 16. My mom told me I always ask inappropriate questions and that I should either be a journalist or an FBI agent. So I chose journalism, or journalism chose me, and I'm glad about it. I've worked at the LA Times, the Oregonian, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and other large organizations and smaller ones, but decided that I wanted to, instead of serving corporate shareholders, I wanted to serve community stakeholders. And that brought me to Milwaukee at the Milwaukee Neighborhood News Service. Milwaukee is not a news desert by any stretch of the imagination, but the Neighborhood News Service covers people of color, primarily Black and Brown Milwaukeeans that have been neglected by other newsrooms. So I always say that a lot of other outlets come into our neighborhoods and they focus on doom and gloom, or they focus on trauma and drama. We focus on representation. So we want to meet people where they are. We tell their stories intentionally. So we always want to paint this complete portrait of our neighborhoods and the people who live in them. And that the adjective I use is resilient. And that's often what we don't see. So we have a website, a social media presence, and a text-based messaging news service that helps us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ron. And how big is your team?
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask. So we are the little team that can. So we have 6 paid part-time reporters and editors, and I stress part-time, 1 Report for America core member, and then we use community volunteers and student interns from Marquette University and other schools. But we're housed in the College of Communication at Marquette, which gives us a lot of in-kind service.
Got it. Okay. Very helpful context. Thank you. I'll ask Sabrina next.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Sabrina Iglesias. I am the community engagement editor at The Trace and the project manager for Up the Block, which is The Trace's engagement effort in Philly. I'm a team of 1 on Up the Block, so I manage freelancers, social media, our website, partnerships, distribution, anything else you can think of. I do it for Up the Block. So Up the Block serves Philadelphians who are looking for information and resources surrounding gun violence in our city. So many newsrooms in Philly have been known to share story after story about shootings after shootings, and they never offer a solution or information on where to turn. And that's kind of where Up the Block comes in. It's a response to the fact that Philadelphians need and are asking for resources when it comes to coping with gun violence here. The Trace is the only national newsroom covering solely gun violence, and we are a small newsroom, which is probably why I'm a team of 1 on Up the Block. But we are a growing newsroom and hoping to just cover gun violence respectfully and appropriately.
Amazing. Thank you, Sabrina. I'll ask Rommel now to introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here today. My name is Rommel Ojeda, and I am the community correspondent for Documented. Documented is the only newsroom in New York City that covers immigration. And it was founded with the ideal to create, something that could provide a service to all the immigrants in New York City, whether it is related to housing, resources for food, or legal representation. Um, I also handle the Documented Semanal, which is the project I'll be talking about today. And this came to be after we realized that there was a void of information reaching the audience that we wanted to cover, which was the Spanish-speaking Latino immigrants in New York. And what we did is we did a year of research, and we were trying to find the platforms that people were consuming media in general. And so we decided to stick with WhatsApp because a lot of the immigrants were using that, platform to talk to their parents, but most importantly, because they already had access to it. So instead of bringing them to our website, we decided to create the information and bring it to where they already felt comfortable. And that would allow us also to share. And, over the years, it's just multiplied. Right now, we have 2,200 members who speak with every day. WhatsApp also serves as a one-to-one, channel where they can send their questions, their comments. Sometimes they send me good morning messages, which is amazing. But we wanted to be present in the community and stay there so that we can be there when nothing is happening, but also when something interesting is happening, because that's, how we should be there. And, to say we are a team of 9, but I'm the only one who, is handling the WhatsApp community. And we're also trying to duplicate what we have with WhatsApp with the Caribbean community and the Chinese community. So we recently hired 2 other community correspondents who will be also developing their own product, to address the voids there.
Got it. Thank you so much. And Jesús?
Hello, I am Jesús del Toro, the director of La Raza, a Spanish newspaper in Chicago. And we, as a Spanish newspaper, are focused on the Hispanic population here in the main Latino neighborhoods, which are mainly Spanish speakers. So many are bilingual too, but we want to serve the community that prefers to read in Spanish. And also, as our other colleagues said, we want to directly serve that community in a respectful way with proper representation and offering information that addresses the issues, but also solutions, and not just saying, we are so neglected, we are so abandoned. We also want to highlight the strength, the resiliency, and the capacities that our community has, which is also that is very important for us. We are a print newspaper. We in some ways are the last major Spanish newspaper in the Chicago central area. In the suburbs, there are other publications, but maybe we are the last one in that capacity. And we also have our digital platform, social media, to reach our community as best as we can. And Chicago is not a news desert also. There are many media, non-profit media, mainstream media, but in terms of information in Spanish, there are still a big need to fulfill, and we in that sense we have a lot more to do, and we are trying to do as much as we can, and with collaboration and help each other projects here, we are trying to do it in the best manner possible.
Got it. Thank you so much, Jesús. I already am hearing respect and representation from everybody, which is wonderful. And we're going to dig in a little bit. So I actually want to now do a round of almost like case studies or examples, one from each of you. And just again, for context, I think maybe some people here attended the first part of this session earlier in the year, which was really about engaging communities of color. And today we kind of want to get into the nuts and bolts of a successful example of distribution in an effort to do that. So I will ask the question, and then we'll do maybe in the same order as everyone just did their introductions. Can you share one example of a successful distribution experience end to end? So whether it was a story, a campaign, or otherwise, we want to understand how it was delivered and kind of what worked and any key lessons, however you want to start. So I'll go back to Ron and let you kick it off.
Well, thank you. I think one of the hallmarks of the Neighborhood News Service is we're about collaboration. We're not trying to take anyone's advertising. We're not trying to take anyone's readership. Everything that we do is embodied in our name: Milwaukee, neighborhoods, news, and service. And one of the things I'm really proud of is our collaboration with the Wisconsin Center for Investigative Journalism. With them, they are regional or statewide, but they also have national impact investigative newsroom that's nonprofit. And we say that we complete each other and we don't compete with each other. And we do this through News 414, which is a text-based messaging service that we started in 2020, right at the cusp of the pandemic. Like, what a great time to start anything, right? And we wanted to reach low-income neighborhoods and really talk to residents, what did they need? And so what we quickly discovered was that even though the pandemic was going on, our readers really were not concerned about the pandemic. They were concerned about eviction, affordable housing, mental health, and food insecurity was a big thing. So basically what happened was, if your life was miserable before the pandemic, it didn't get any better. And so while COVID was testing people, our readers were already having these trials. And so one of the things we did was we created a new beat, and it was focused on food insecurity, listing, where can I get food? How can I get pandemic food aid? And we found those numbers were off the charts, that people needed to know those information. And we would do resource type stories, like, here's where you can get food. Here's where you can not get evicted. Here's how, you can apply for service. So we didn't just point out the problems. They already knew those problems. They didn't need us for that. They knew they were hungry. They were on the verge of homelessness. They didn't need us for that. What they needed us for was to connect that. So because of our collaboration throughout the city, we were able to get that information not only to the text-based folks, but also through every media outlet we published our work. So we found that our work was being amplified at a time where people needed to connect those dots. And so, there were challenges coming into it, because we thought that we had our thought about, like, what's this going to look like? What does this mean? And I think other panelists will talk about this. It's really about relationships, and it doesn't really matter your platform if you don't have a relationship, if you're not trying to start that relationship. So I feel we're successful because we're cultivating that relationship. Since that time, we have tried to reach some of our Spanish-speaking readers, and we now have translation that we never had before. And so we're trying to take advantage of that. So it's not perfect, but we're starting off on the right foot.
Thank you so much, Ron. Yeah, we'll unpack more of that as we continue to discuss. But just a reminder to everybody listening that if you click on Slido, if you have specific questions for any of the panelists, you can just type them in and we can start collecting them so we can address them later. But I will now turn to Sabrina if you'd like to share any example or case study.
Yeah, I can really relate to a lot of what Ron said about collaboration. That's been kind of one of the easiest ways I've been able to distribute Up the Block, because Up the Block, just to give a little bit more context on it, it is a journalism reporting project, but we do kind of lean away from written stories. It's more just like resources such as organizations in Philly that people can turn to, just kind of trying to make things super accessible. So, we don't have stories that are being republished or circulated. It's all within this website and then turning that into product outside of the internet. So yeah, collaboration has been huge for us, and it's a big part of how I'm able to do this work in a way that's useful and helpful. I partner with other newsrooms, local organizations, and pretty much anyone that I meet that's willing to help me spread the word about Up the Block. One of my biggest partnerships has been with Resolve Philly, and their Equally Informed Philly initiative, which a bunch of folks probably know about because they're the best and everyone should know about them. And we've worked together on their text line, which is another thing I heard Ron bring up, which has been huge. It is translated into Spanish, and it's just a way for folks to reach out and just kind of, they do this weekly, I think, newsletter through the text line. And people can just ask questions right there and get real responses from real people. So that's been a really awesome way that we were able to collaborate with them. We also do tabling events with them. We share resources. We repost on Instagram and kind of just whatever else comes up. It's been really great working so closely with them because, like I said, I am a team of one technically, but being able to partner with another newsroom that's so like-minded has kind of made it feel like they're my team, and they're my team whether they like it or not, is what I tell them. So we go to each other with ideas and issues, and instead of feeling like we need to be gatekeeping this information that we're gathering because we're from different newsrooms, we actually end up working together because it benefits the community and it benefits both of our projects.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. I see there's some questions showing up in the chat already, but let's now move to Rommel here a little bit more, and then we'll start digging into some of those.
Yeah, I agree that collaboration has also been like the key to our growth. From the very beginning, we reached out to community organizations to help us spread the word. And our collaborators have also become our members that signed up to the service. They have, been spreading the word to their friends. So sometimes we get messages from somebody saying like, hey, my friend TK name said that I should reach out to you for this type of information. So in a way, we consider them to be our partners in anything that we're working on. One project that we're really excited of how we covered, and we're really proud of it, is the Excluded Workers Fund in New York. Just for context, during the pandemic, undocumented immigrants were left out of many programs. And so the need for money and just, resources was necessary. What happened in April 2021, I believe, is that the state passed this program that would allow them to apply for $15,600 as a one-time payment. And this was an alternative to unemployment benefits. And the same day that it was announced, what we did is we did a breaking news sort of message where we sent to all the members in our WhatsApp community that this was in fact a real program. Because first of all, we wanted to make sure that they knew that it was real and they could tap into it. And that was super necessary because before that, there had never been a program like that. So if people just read it online, if they did not have the ability to fact check it themselves, they wouldn't really pay much attention to it. And so that was super important. And then we ensured that they knew how to apply, who qualified, and most importantly, we made sure that they can reach out to us with questions and comments. And they did. Over a period of 2 months, we had so many questions to the point where we needed to host a live workshop with Make the Road New York. And I believe 1,500 people tuned in, to Facebook Live. And from there, we got like another 1,100 comments that we reviewed, picked up whatever was most commonly asked, and we did a Q&A. We took all that information and we sent it back into the community because we knew that somebody would have a question and hopefully it was there. But if they had another question, they could also just reach out back to us. So every time we're trying to every time we get something from the community, we always make sure that we give something back because that's how we build their trust. And just, throughout the coverage, we unveiled so many investigations of people not being able to reach their consulates for passports, which we were able to co-publish with Univision, which is the largest, newspaper, Spanish-speaking newspaper in the United States. And what was beautiful about it is that after we published, the general counsel started reaching out to us saying like, hey, the people that you interview, have them contact this number so we can get them the passports. And then with the passports, they could apply to to get the $15,600. And, that was just pretty cool, I think, from a impact point of view. But we kept with the topic. Once they started getting approved for the money, they came to us saying like, hey, I was approved. And we were able to celebrate with them, even though it was through text, because, when the pandemic sort of moved everything online. But we took those comments and asked them for, a message so that they can also inspire others that did not apply for the program. And we could share, their testimony saying like, hey, this is a real program. This is how their lives was changed. You still have time to apply. And, it's been 6 months since the program was ended. And we're still covering it. We were able to release some investigations last month regarding some ATMs that were rigged and had taken their money, from the cards that they received. But, this wouldn't be possible if we're not there 24/7. And if they didn't know that they could reach out to us and we will actually listen to them and do something about it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Rommel. Yeah, there's so many takeaways from that example. But first, I'll move to Jesus to share his.
Yes, thank you. Well, we also has been collaborating with other outlets in Chicago to increase our reach, to share our experiences, and also to include new content that we may not have in other way. For example, we do translations with the help of INN, a program that INN has been doing in Chicago to increase the availability of content translated from English into Spanish, and that allowed ourselves but others to be able to share content and to reach other communities. In our case, our community is the Spanish community, but these other colleagues and partners with that content were also able to reach a more diverse audience, and that was very good. And one special project and campaign that we did that we are very proud of it is that in 2021, La Raza was part of the Facebook Sustainability Accelerator, which is a very interesting program. And thanks to a grant that came with that project and support from the International Center for Journalists, we did, among other things, a big COVID-19 vaccination awareness campaign, because unfortunately in our community there was, or still is in many ways, a lot of hesitancy, a lot of lack of information, a lot of fear about the vaccines, about what that means, and a lot of disinformation also making things more confused. Then sorry if you hear a lot of noise here, is the streets are very noisy here. And we decided to do this campaign, organizing or arranging all of our means to reach as much as possible, which is print, our website, and our social media. But we added also a key component, which was something that allows us to reach directly the neighborhoods. We place billboards in the several streets in Latino neighborhoods with a big visuals that say the vaccine is available, it's safe, it saves lives. Also, we do place ads in train stations, bus stations, inside the metro stations and the trains, and in the buses, in the sides of the buses. And all of them include, of course, our URL, our information, and also QR codes to allow the people directly to scan and to see the information in their cell phones. And that direct the reader or the user to the content that we provide online. We partner with an organization, Illinois Unidos, which is a great group of stakeholders in Chicago that is working to improve the health and the opportunities for the Latino community here. And we partnered with them because they also have a lot of information and outreach in regards to COVID mitigation and vaccination. And that was a great campaign because we reached our usual, user readers, but also we wanted to go beyond and to use all technologies, if you want to say that, no, because our billboards are ads in trains, in buses, with QR codes that allowed us that interactivity. But at the end, the idea was to bring our content closer to our people, to our community. And that platform, the usual print, social media, digital, plus the other, allow us to, fortunately, to reach more. And I think we did a service and provide our grain of sand in order to reduce the pandemic.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jesus. So, I'm looking at some of the questions that have come in, and I think maybe we can jump into those because it doesn't seem like anybody needs convincing that using, text messaging is a useful way to stay connected and have also two-way communication in many cases with the community that you're serving. But in terms of how it actually happened, we have a number of questions, from folks who'd like to know how you got started. So I'm thinking, perhaps from the perspective of someone who doesn't yet have a messaging service or program set up, and anyone can jump in here. Can you say more first about how does the text message strategy and audience differ from other channels like email and social? And then when you actually got started, how much did it cost? What did you use? Where did you start? Anybody want to jump in first?
I can
Go ahead.
I can take a go. Yeah, so in terms of how it differs from like email and and other forms of distributing news, and this is perhaps just my take on it, is that it's more personal, because the way we see it is that we gave them a journalist that they can reach from their phone on their pocket. And every time we try to, every time we engage with the people, we make sure that they know there is somebody that's going to reply to them right away. And everyone is on their phones right now, so we don't want them to, have problems accessing, a computer or accessing an app where they have to log into the email, for example. So if we can take, those obstacles of accessibility and make sure that they can just send something right away, that was, something that we really wanted to accomplish. And, it's not perfect. There are, still certain problems that may arise. But yeah, just removing those barriers, because at least for the immigrant community, that tends to be one of the biggest problems in accessing information. For the other part, if anybody wants to jump in.
Well, I was going to say, think about it as a tool to reach people and not just the only way to do it. So, for example, we got started with News 414 through a grant from Google. And it was, I think we got $300,000 to start, and we had this expensive technology. We brought a lot of phone numbers. And suddenly I was realizing that, so we thought we were serving these low-income neighborhoods, but I was getting phone calls from Marquette folks saying, hey, I got your text. I'm like, you got our text? Why didn't you get our text? And so we started thinking about that and realizing that perhaps we were not reaching the audience we intended. Just because someone has a phone number that's 414 doesn't mean that they're in our neighborhoods, right? So this year we started to do something a little bit more intentional, which was focus on two zip codes, one that served Latinx community and one that served African Americans, and to build from that experience so that it's more organic. Because one thing I realized is that I have a cousin, and he has changed his cell phone number 5 or 6 times, but his email address has never changed in 15 years. So we thought that we were doing something. We were still reaching people, but then kind of going back and saying like, okay, we feel like it's a tool. It's not the only way to reach people. And so we're leveraging everything from, our website. We created 2 Facebook pages. One that's Devin Christie, our project director. She's wonderful. She created a Spanish language Facebook page, and we have an English one. So people can sign up and get community events and post their events. And we ask people, it's not transactional. We want it to be transformational. But the other day, Sam Woods, one of our reporters, was looking to do a story on 6 outstanding graduates. I said, well, let's put it on the Facebook pages. And it's gotten like more engagement than I've ever seen for any story. And we've also gotten people that we would have never gotten. So I would say that, don't get hooked up on the platform, get hooked up on your strategy first, and then decide how you reach people.
Yeah, and regarding the logistics of it, I will say this is another place where doing this within a partnership has really come in handy for me, because I have no idea how much it costs. But I do know that they have merch kind of that they give out at events that has like, say it's a pen and it has like text info to this number, and then you'll be signed up for the texting list. And I think the big way that we've gathered phone numbers for this is by going out into the community and handing out those pens, or just talking to folks and saying, hey, would you be interested in signing up for this? And you'll get this many texts per week about this information. And I received the text too, and they're super informative. They have just like a few little blurbs, nothing crazy that people have to really go through and figure stuff out through it. They're very accessible, and just gives people kind of information, usually based on like what's going on that week. So I think it's been a really great tool to reach people in their pocket type of way.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here in Chicago, the DePaul University professors and students of journalism in DePaul University, they created a very interesting project. The name is Chi Health Text, about the Chicago health, and using text messages to reach the community, to receive from the people questions and information that they want to know about health, and to communicate with newsrooms in order to try to offer content to serve or to solve that questions or that things, no? And those professors and students from DePaul contacted some newsrooms. La Raza was one of them, to start thinking about how to apply or to implement this project that they are doing. They are creating the technology, they are creating the logistics to do this, and it's a good example, because maybe if one of any newsroom in any part of the country wants maybe to have access to this kind of text messaging technology, and with the nuances of that, a very good option maybe is to interact with the local universities, because the professors and students of journalism, but also from informatics, from computer systems, they collaborate to create this, and that is in some ways you may not need to have a big investment, because if you collaborate with these very enthusiastic and very savvy students and professors, that can create a good cycle of collaboration and have this kind of technologies. This is not that is new, but sometimes it's not reachable, not available for small newsrooms, that don't know how to do it. Maybe it's not that it's expensive. It's just that you don't know how to handle it, or what services, what kind of technologies. And that particular project in Chicago has been very interesting because of that.
We also saw community groups that were doing mass text. And so, I mean, that's, they had no more sophistication than we did, but they were getting the mutual aid out that way. So I think there's always someone in your own particular neighborhood that's already doing it. And just to partner with them is one way. You don't always have to spend a lot of money to do these things. So working with the university, working with the organizations that are doing that already, and I believe that there's always a group in your readership that's doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the point of people signing up, if I'm understanding what you shared correctly, Ron, if you have the funding to purchase numbers in Bash, very, very few people have that kind of resource. Right. So the kind of grassroots approach, sign up here and then go out into the community, works just as well. And it sounds like,
if not better.
Yes, you're actually, you're getting the people who want to use it. One last question on texting, and this one was specifically for Rommel. How many people were needed to respond, or in terms of staffing the messaging, what did that look like?
So it's always been one person for now, just because the messages that we get are manageable. Of course, as it grows, we will need to find different ways or add more people. But back when the Excluded Workers Fund was, I would say popular and it was still active, we were getting at least 200 messages daily. And for us, it became very important that we were able to spend the time needed with each question, just because we don't want to automate a message that may not really solve the problems. But yeah, so right now it's just one person. As it grows, it will definitely have to expand, or perhaps we will need to develop a different approach to it. But yeah, thank you for that question.
Yeah. So I'm just scrolling through these questions. I'm gonna ask two questions that showed up here. One is a little bit broader and another is technical, but they might relate to each other. One, has anyone here used QR codes? And if so, how? Please tell us about it. And then secondly, this is sort of a broader kind of question, but how have you dealt with the sort of digital divide in terms of who it is that you're serving? So anybody wants to kick off either question?
Yeah, I will take on QR codes. We've been using them since kind of the beginning of this project, since we've been able to go out into the community and actually distribute QR codes. We use them along with short links and UTM codes to see if people are actually, using these QR codes from the flyers that we give out, and then that'll bring them to our website. So I feel like throughout COVID, it's been kind of like the resurgence of the QR code renaissance, if you will. Because when we first started using them, I was like, I really don't know if people are going to want to do this or understand what it is, because they were kind of new to me too. But now, you go to a restaurant and the menu is a QR code, and I think people are really starting to catch on, and having them on flyers has made it super easy to see who's finding the website, where they're coming from. I use specific UTM codes for, say, if I'm doing an event in West Philly, that UTM code will relate to that specific QR code on that specific flyer. And we'll be able to see, I talked to this many people, how many of them who got this flyer actually went to the site and looked around. So it's been a really great tool for us. And then regarding the digital divide, certain areas of Philly have like the lowest broadband rates in the country. And that's been a huge one. And that's kind of where experimentation comes in. And that's why I like to go out into the community so much, because yes, I hand out these flyers and I am on this text line, and all of this is technology based. But when you're out in the community and you can talk to people and they can say like, oh yeah, like I don't really use the internet, or whatever they might say when you're talking about your site or the texting, that's kind of your opportunity to say, oh, well, in this neighborhood, there's this, this, and this. Let me write that down for you. Let me get your email. I'll send you the list. And just keeping you connected with folks if they do have email. Like, a lot of people, I think Ron was saying, some people have an email address that just kind of sticks around forever, and they can go to a library and check that, but they don't have a phone that they can use. So that's been useful for me. And yeah, I think there are always ways to deal with that digital divide. You just kind of have to do it in person.
And we have been using QR codes a lot. We use it for that COVID vaccination awareness campaign. We place QR codes in our print product to allow people directly go from the print page of our newspaper to our digital content. We place QR codes in the billboards. Oh no, not in the billboards, because it's dangerous if the driver tries to, take the QR code while driving. Is something that you don't know. You don't do. But we place the QR codes in the buses, in the train stations, within the trains, in places where everybody have an easy way to scan it and to actually go to the content. In the boxes in the streets where we distribute our newspapers, those boxes also have QR codes to allow people to go and take that and go to our content. And we have also different QR codes depending on where these QR codes are placed. No, the QR codes in the buses were different from the QR codes in the trains or in the paper, in order also to track what or which platform or which location is more frequently used. And it's a good option to create that bridge between the analogical and the digital world. No, in our case, in terms of the digital divide, it's a good tool too, because the Hispanic or the Spanish-speaking community tend to have less desktop or access to internet, and a lot more is just through the cell phone. Then, if you have a QR code, it's the easier way to connect, allow them to go directly to the content that you are offering, more than typing or clicking a link in your computer or in an email. QR code is useful for that. And yeah, you can say that it's an old-fashioned or medium old-fashioned way that is reviving to reach your audience, and is in some ways useful, at least to allow people that may not go online to see that content to reach it, because you make it easier. As mentioned, during COVID, the proliferation of QR codes to avoid touching stuff make them more frequent, more accepted. Then it's a good option for us. Well, us has been, and it's a good option to use it.
I almost kind of feel like we have to become less platform agnostic and more reader specific, right? Meeting readers where they are, right? It's not one solution, it's a number of solutions. And that's where the listening comes in. You might discover, I'm discovering that maybe we ought to do once a year a print version of the neighborhood news service that lists the resources, because it's not reaching some of the senior citizens. I'm always surprised too that some of our younger people, they didn't know how to use QR codes. So I think that we have to do a little audience research and just kind of stepping in the community and listening more, and then determining how you distribute your content. Your content determines everything, right? If you don't have good content to distribute, it doesn't really matter the platform.
Yeah, anything that you wanted to add on this question, Rommel? Otherwise, I can ask another.
Yes, it's a good thing that Ronald brought up like the content that we share, because we are always trying to make sure that people, whatever information our members get, that they could use it right away, because the urgency is, the urgency cannot wait. So if they get an article from us, it's going to show them like, okay, you can go to this address to get food tomorrow at this time. And that's, the actionable information that we're always trying to compile when we send in the newsletter. So I'm glad that he brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to echo, I think many of you share this, but yeah, in terms of listening, thinking about the human being and how they move through their day, and where we can sort of introduce small digital experiences, as opposed to thinking about people who live on the internet and what format to deliver to them, I think it's a really helpful mindset shift that I think everyone is kind of doing intuitively. So just wanted to call that out. So we have about 9 minutes left. So I want to ask one more question, because it seems like, everyone's touched on this a little, and a very kind of important aspect of distribution and delivery and testing out these tools is also to be able to tell when something's not working, or when you want to change the tool, or you have learned something through listening, and therefore you want to now try something different. So I'm curious if anyone has had experiences like that, where you initially wanted to do something, and then you kind of learned, actually the community is here and we should do it this way instead, and you were able to pivot or just slightly modify. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can give an example. So before, we used to cover events, and we would send the recaps of those events, and somebody reached out to me and said like, hey, this is pretty cool, but I would like to know about the events before, they're actually published, because that way they can attend to those. And so, we listened, and what we do now is we use the WhatsApp stories, that goes, up for 24 hours. And we post events there like, hey, tomorrow there's going to be a workshop for citizenship applications at this location. You can go here. If you have any questions, get back to me. So yeah, just, actually listening to the community and finding a solution, or finding somebody that can give them a solution to certain problems. That has been something that we're trying to like every day get better at. And, so far I think it's working based on the feedback that they gave us.
For us, we kind of thought with the text-based messaging service that, we had to have these big items, like how to avoid eviction, how to do that, how to keep, here's where to go to get affordable housing. And that was important. But what we also learned is that our text-based folks, they wanted some more diversity in terms of the stories that we do. So the first Hispanic being elected city council president did really well. So we keep experimenting. I think one thing we didn't learn, like we didn't set goals. Like we kind of said, I wish we had said, maybe we should have, but like, what does success look like? How do you measure it? Like, is it through subscriptions? Is it through interactions? And so just, I think so we're kind of fine tuning it now. And then I realized that, so as soon as we get things together, I lose 2 staff members and they get new jobs. So I'm starting over again. So I realized that, it's always going to be chaotic in our world. But you see these small but mighty nonprofits right in front of you. We're doing it. Just take the step. Just take one step. Crawl, walk, run, and then see how it works.
Yes, and we may say, for example, that before the pandemic started, in 2019, we started a we're part of a collaboration with Northwestern University School of Medicine, Public Narrative, which is a very important nonprofit here that supports local media, to better know how to reach health researchers in order to provide better information about health. But when the pandemic, hit, we realized that we didn't know anything about how to properly distribute health news. We were, feeling like naked, and that places us in a position that we need to start learning again, and we surrender some this kind of self importance that, oh, I know how to report, I know how to cover this, and go back to the basis. Well, let's talk about with the health researchers. Let's talk about that with community organizations in order to relearn how to deliver better news, more usable and more relevant. And that project that was being very interesting for us, uh, at the end created a model, a framework that could be replicated for other researchers from other universities and other places to reach local community media in order to better, inform or distribute the findings of this health research. Then we needed to be humble to say, well, we need to learn again how to do this. And at the end, the result, I think, was auspicious, because not just for us, because that framework will be replicated by others, no, which is a good thing too.
Absolutely. Sabrina, did you want to add anything to this one?
I just think, the initial listening tour I did for Up the Block was so vital to this, and really showed me, like, you can't go into this type of work with any assumptions about what people are looking for. I know it was brought up earlier, like, you would think that COVID started, people want information about COVID. And that's just like, it's just not the case, for a lot of people. Yeah, that is super important, but a lot of people just have issues that have been ongoing. And, for me, doing this type of work and I'm from Kensington, Philly, so it's the highest gun violence neighborhood in Philadelphia. And I was like, I got this. Like, I know exactly what people want to know. I know all the questions everyone's going to ask. And no, I did not. So, listening, just being an active listener has been a really huge, learning experience for me. And I think it's super important when it comes to trying to serve your community as best as you can as a journalist.
Sabrina, could you talk a little bit about the listening tour?
Yeah. So the listening tour is literally what informed this entire project. It shaped the entire thing, and it continues to, because it was, pre-COVID vaccine in the summer of 2020. Great time to start an engagement project. It was all virtual. It was all over the phone. And when it was happening, I was thinking, oh, geez, this is not going to be great. But it was great. People wanted to talk. People had a lot to talk about. And I was kind of gathering all of that information I was hearing, all of the questions I was hearing, and allowed that to kind of boil down to 3 kind of pillars, is what I ended up calling them. First was just generally people wanted information on gun violence and where to turn. The second was that they wanted to know how to keep their kids safe. And then the third was more civic engagement focus. And people had a lot of questions about how do I volunteer? How do I get involved in making my community safer? So it was really just no prompts given, hey, what questions do you have? What do you want to talk to me about when it comes to public safety? And people would just go on and on for hours. And that was really a beautiful learning experience on how to be an active listener and use that to create a project.
Yeah, fantastic. So we have just 1 minute left to wrap up. So I want to try to squeeze in a really rapid fire 1-sentence question closing round, which is, in a sentence, if you could just share how you see the role that you are playing in serving your community, what would you say?
In 1 sentence.
Gut reaction. Yes.
Listening intently, but working strategically.
Jihii, this is hard.
right?
I feel like we could just pull keywords out of what everybody
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I may say that use all the platforms and all the possibilities available, even if they feel old, new, weird, or difficult, because you need to reach your readers where they are and not waiting for them to come to you.
Yeah, I would just say really focus on partnerships, especially if you're a smaller team or a team of one. It can really make all the difference.
Yeah, everything they said, because if I start talking, I'll go on for hours, you know.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I feel like this was so insightful. So again, to Rommel, Ron, Sabrina, Jesús, and Sarah for your behind the scenes help, everyone at INN, and we'll wrap up here.